Hey everybody, it's Topics, and bringing here another commentary. This one is a plus 13 Ara-Kara. Many of you requested another commentary or more commentaries be done since the last one, so here it is. So I'm gathering this first pull, pretty standard. Most tanks just run all the way down the stairs. They stop either on the bridge, after the bridge, sometimes even before the bridge. I'm going right into mini boss here. I'm going to pause it. That was a fast pull, and there's a lot to talk about. So, and I promise, I saw your feedback from the last one. I will get rid of this media player stuff at the bottom. I accidentally left that on the last video. So yeah, when gathering this pull, you want to go as slow as you need to make sure that you keep aggro. So, I'll charge into a few mobs. I'll throw my axe at a few of them. I just want to make sure that I'm gathering aggro as I'm making my way to this mini boss. Now, something I would also suggest if you're a tank and a pug is that you discuss with your team beforehand if they're okay with doing this first brig pull or not, because I've seen pugs go straight into this mini boss. Nobody knows what they're kicking, and it just depletes and you die. You want to make sure that if you do this big pull that everybody knows what they're kicking. I've done this pull split up before. In fact, on my plus 15 Ara-Kara that I have timed, we actually split up this first pull to be safe, because the timer in this dungeon is free. But in this case, we did it all together. I believe that I told them I was going to kick the mini boss fear. As you can see, we have this there's an attendant over here. Someone probably forgot to kick this or tag it in, whoever was assigned. But I think I'm going to taunt it from here or throw my axe at it to get it to come in. But normally this would already be into this pull. So let's press play and get this going here. So yeah, you can see the first attendant is there beside the boss, and then I tag the far attendant. And then we just need someone to help kick it in here. Mini boss is literally already dead, so this pull shouldn't last much longer than a minute to a minute and a half on a team that has good DPS. You don't want it to last that long anyways, otherwise people run out of kicks and stops and these things just start casting. So doing this first big pull is definitely a mix of coordination and DPS. If you're missing either of them, they're not going to work. So we finish that pull off. I'm gathering this next pull. I usually go into this attendant, get aggro, and then I jump over here and tag in the flyers. And then I bring everything back over here to the attendant. You kind of want to gather things on the attendant because that's going to be the mob that you're kicking. Sometimes these crawlers over here, depending on the patrol, sometimes you'll aggro them here, sometimes you won't. I try and avoid aggroing them just so that we don't have too many crawlers sending out poisons on the team. So it's important that you bring, probably I would say, 2 poison dispels to this dungeon. So I can see the patrols kind of near us, so I'm just going to pull in the rest. Unfortunate for the rogue that did not get a re-stealth there, but there's not much we could do with the way that patrol was heading towards us. Could have maybe positioned close to the edge of the platform. That's a little change I could have made to make it easier for the rogue. So I'm going to leap over here and gather these 6 mobs. And then I'm going to tag in the rest of the mobs. You gotta really be careful turning your back here as a prot warrior. So go as slow as you need to gathering this pull, I would say. I think I died once on this pull before because I was trying to gather everything and I was turning my back. So just take your time, make sure the mobs are in front of you, that you're kind of backpedaling to the areas that you need to gather. That would be my advice to make sure you don't die. Says my team is falling off that crawler, I'm going to leap over here and get this buff. That's what I usually do, is after that pull is when I come over here and get this buff, because the tank can kind of just leave once those crawlers are getting ready to explode. This buff is very important on high keys, maybe not so much a 13, but definitely on a high key. You want this buff so that you can stun this mini boss. The reason you stun this mini boss with this buff is to make sure that you don't get 2 of the AoE casts. So I probably stunned this boss a little earlier than I needed to. I probably could have waited. The longer you can wait to stun it until like right before the AoE cast goes off, the better, because you want to get as much DPS into the boss as possible. So there's the little AoE that went off, and obviously as you can see that mini boss's health, we're not going to get another one. If you don't have that buff and stun it, you probably will get 2, and it potentially could be a wipe on hierarchies because people are not going to have the defensives to withstand 2 of those usually. So I'm tagging in those 2 crawlers that are far, and then I'm going right into the mini boss. As a tank, just do not worry about the attendant coming in. Your DPS should be kicking that for you, or your healer if they have a kick. Just focus on this mini boss, kicking the poison cast. So you can see our rogue kicked it there. That puts a poison dot on people that'll hurt if you're a non-tank, so you just want 1 kick on the mini boss here and some kicks on the attendant. This can be a busy pull for melee, so you have the puddles on the ground, you have the poison cloud on the ground, the mini boss does a frontal, so just keep that in mind as a tank. Try and position things there to make it easier for your DPS. So as you can see, it's just under 5 minutes here. Going into the first mini boss, this is really good, first boss I meant. This is a very good timestamp to be at, about 5 minutes. You know that you're on 2 chest pace if you're at the first boss at the 5-minute mark. So we do not have Lust here because we sent it on that first pull, that first huge pull. So I'm positioning the boss here close to the ads. Not too close where it's dangerous, where as soon as they spawn they're going to be at the boss, but you want to position them maybe 15 to 20 yards away, just so that your melee don't have too far to run between the boss and the ads. I know tanks and low keys might think that it's better to drag the boss away from the eggs as far as possible so that they don't touch them, but that actually ends up being worse for your team because now your DPS have to run super far back and forth and the boss ends up taking forever to die. So as you can see, I positioned by the eggs again, about 15-20 yards away. Making sure that my DPS can just run over there and start killing them as soon as possible. So positioning is important as a tank with the boss, and then the other positioning part of this would be making sure you drop your Gossamer Onslaught puddles in open areas that need to be filled in, like I'm doing here. I leap away because I kind of got trapped. But yeah, you want to make sure you're not just dropping those puddles anywhere, otherwise you're going to run out of floor space fast. So again, positioning the boss by the eggs. Might need to press a defensive once in a while on that AoE, but as a tank you typically want to press a defensive on Ferocious Bite. That typically will hurt more than the AoE for you as a tank. But all in all, as a tank, this boss is not up too big of a deal. It's more about positioning of the boss and dropping your puddles kind of stacked like we are here. It'll save a lot of floor space, allow the fight to go on a lot longer. So I kind of pinged boss here because I saw that it was sub 20%. And the eggs were kind of in a weird spot, so I figured if we just DPS boss down here, we could probably make it by without having to kill another ad set. So I see the ads are coming. I think I call for CC. Yeah, so as long as we CC those ads, we should be able to get this boss dead. I would not suggest doing this unless the boss is below 20% HP, and even then it depends on where the ads are. If the ads are in a spot where they're going to be able to get to the boss fast, I would probably still kill them. But if the boss is sub 20 HP and the ads are like all the way across the room, I think it's probably safe to just execute boss. So something to quickly talk about here. Usually, if your DPS are aware, they will have saved their cooldowns. They will have not sent them at the end of first boss. Because you can do a big pull, which is the entire bridge here. And so I'm looking right here, and I can see my rogue has Deathmark. my hunter has coordinated assault. I can see that my Boomy also has a charge of his CD here. So I'm like, okay, we got full CDs. I can send this big bridge pull. I would not send this big bridge pull on high keys without at least 2 out of your 3 DPS having CDs, because this is a tough pull for a tank damage-wise on higher keys. So that's just something to be aware of. Even throughout the whole key in Mythic Plus, you always want to be checking your cooldowns when you're going to go into a big pull, because you have to kind of adjust on the fly as a tank. If your route has a big pull in it, but your DPS did not save CDs for it, you may have to break it up, even though your route says it should be a big pull. That's something that can wipe a lot of pug tanks, is when they just stick to their route no matter what happens in the dungeon, no matter who has defensives, who has cooldowns. If lust is up, they just always stick to their route, and you sometimes can't always do that. So let me play this. Gonna gather this pull. I realized I didn't have a leap, so I couldn't leap over here and tag it. I just had to walk over. But either way, I'm gonna send all of we're gonna send all of our CDs here. Yep, okay, I see the DPS is sending their CDs now. So yeah, it's a big pull, a lot of tank damage. The extraction strikes from the assistants are what really hurt the tank here. Both of them can chunk you for half your HP easily, so on high keys. So that's what makes this pull dangerous, so the assistants. But of course, we're going to prioritize the Blood Guard and get that down so that the others die off faster. And yeah, you always want to be prioritizing the big guys here, the Blood Guards, because they give the rest of the mobs a damage reduction. So you want to kill them first, so that everything else after that dies fast. That's the point. So I'm gonna go in here. I always wait for this patrol to line up properly, by the way. I think it's worth it, because you don't want to come in here and have your DPS hold CDs and then you wait 30 seconds, then it comes in. I think it's better just to stand back and wait for this patrol to overlap and then go in. That way your DPS can send everything at once on 5 mobs. It can be tough to be patient, I know, when the patrols are going back and forth in this area, but it's definitely worth it, damage-wise, to just pull them together like this. If you try and tag them in when they're patrolling, you have a chance that you might aggro something else, or maybe your DPS tags one early and they get aggro, and it's just, it can go sideways, so definitely just wait for the patrol to overlap. So we finish this off, and I go in right away, and I want to explain this decision here. So this Blood Guard right here patrols back and forth. Typically, you want to come in here and pull this as it's walking away, because then you know you have the entire patrol walking away. It stops here, and then it comes back, and it gives you plenty of time to kill this pack. The important part about killing this pack is this stag shell right here. This will continue to cast Alerting Shrill, which then summons more mobs. If that happens, it's probably a wipe and the dungeon's probably over. And you do not want this stag shell to have a damage reduction from this Blood Guard being by it, which is why you want to wait for this to patrol away and then pull this. However, if you're on a low enough key, if you have a good enough group, if people have CDs, I did see the Rogue's Death Mark is coming up here in 8 seconds, and the Coordinated Assault is almost up. And I saw that we did have a little bit of time before the patrol got to us, so I decided to go in here anyway. So if you're aware enough to make that decision, then go for it. However, I would recommend, in pugs at least, waiting for this patrol to walk away and then coming in here to pull this. And you might have to sit there and wait for 10 to 15 seconds. But again, I think it's going to be a safer pull and keep you guys alive. So, because as you see here, I just tagged this in because I know it's getting close and I don't want my DPS to get aggro. And now everything here has a damage reduction. But the Rogue just popped his Death Mark. Druids got CDs up. So that's why everything here is dying pretty fast anyway. But yeah, we're focusing the Stag Shell so that it doesn't get that alert cast off. And now we're just going to be prioritizing the Blood Guard and getting that dead. The hardest part about these pulls in the middle area trash of Ara-Kara is the casts. You're often going to have these double web mage pulls where there's 2 bolt casts going off, and you basically need you need 2 kicks on each one plus stops. So your group needs to be fully using their kicks and stops in this area, otherwise you're going to be dying, because if more than like 2 bolt casts go through at a time, people are probably going to get one shot. You could probably afford 1 cast here and there to go through, but any more than 1 cast, like every 10 seconds, someone's going to die. So then we're leaping into these sentries. Typically someone in your group has a knockback or a grip. You know, if you have a DK, you have a grip. If you have a druid or shaman, you're going to have a knock. So you can just get your team to knock these in together. If they're not doing that, I would call for it. I would just say knock, please. Because you want to make sure that these are grouped together so you can all kill them down before their casts go off and you guys run out of stops. I have seen groups skip this. I personally don't find it that inefficient. Often at this point your DPS are waiting for CDs to come up anyway, so you might as well just be getting some extra percentage. As you can see, like, the hunter has his CD but he's holding it for boss most likely. The rogue CD is coming up in a couple seconds. The druid has a charge. So if I would have just went into the boss, they wouldn't have had those. But now since we killed this, all of their offensive CDs came up. And that's usually how it works when you're doing this dungeon time effectively. That's how it lines up. So we're going into boss here. We do have lust up. Okay, there, we just lusted, so the lust timings in this dungeon are typically either first pull into mini boss or first boss, and then regardless which one you do out of those 2 at the beginning, lust should always be up for second boss. So the second boss should be your next lust no matter what. Shaman got hit by the frontal there, but they onked. As a tank, you're going to want to position this frontal off to the side as much as possible, as you see I'm doing. So you see how much room it gives your DPS in the circle. So just always aim this frontal off to the side to give them a lot of room in the circle. Other than that, there's not much going on. This fight is mostly about dodging, right? It's dodging the frontal, staying in the circle. There's the boss charge that he does that you have to dodge. You also want to point this frontal away from the group as a tank. Never point it to the center. You always want to point it to the edge. And then I drag boss a little bit more into center here because then he has less of a charge. And always grab this ad as a tank. Grab the aggro on this ad if you can once it spawns. Don't let it just start swinging at a DPS. And then group the ad and the boss together if possible so that we can get some cleave. So the rogue, I think, died there from standing in the circles too long. So you see him trying to finish these ads off a little bit, but I gotta get in the circle, so I'm trusting my range to get a kick there. This is why it's very important not to play triple melee in this dungeon, because not only does it make it hard to kick the ads on this boss because you only have melee kicks, but the last boss will also be very difficult with the poisons. If you're all standing on top of each other with the poisons as triple melee, it's definitely possible, but it's just, you know, you don't want to make the dungeon harder for yourself if you don't have to. So I'd always recommend playing at least 2 ranged classes in this dungeon, and that could be, you know, a ranged healer and a DPS and a ranged DPS. That's fine too, just as long as you have 2 ranged classes. So I grab aggro on the ad, kick it, and then I jump over the boss. We're just gonna finish the boss here. So yeah, finishing this boss at 16 minutes-ish is where you want to be for 2 chest timing. If you're much over like 18 minutes right now, you're not going to 2 chest. But okay, I grabbed that. I think this is a pause angle. So I grabbed that buff over there, which a lot of people miss and don't grab, but there is a buff over there by the wall right as you enter this area. Make sure you grab that. Especially for my route, I need it for this next pull. It makes it significantly easier. And remember, you only have a minute to use this buff after you grab it. So most likely, if you grab that buff, you probably are using it on this first pull. So I'm going to drag this Overseer over here. And what I do is I tag in these 2 mobs to the left. And then I make sure I have aggro. And then I tag in these 2 mobs to the right. And so now you have 5-pack, and then you're going to tag in the flyers. So I just used my AoE taunt here. I waited till everything was grouped in and AoE taunted to get aggro. If you're a paladin that doesn't have a bunch of ranged hammers and shields, you might need to pull this a little bit slower and really make sure you have aggro and everything, because this is a point where your DPS could die. Because this is a big pull, right? And in this pull, you're going to have the cast going off by the Overseer. You're going to have the webs on the ground. If anyone stands in these puddles, they're going to get stunned. So that's why I grabbed the buff for this pull. And I don't know if you guys saw where I used it, but I'm going to back up a little bit here to make sure that you guys saw that. So as I'm gathering this again, as I see these flyers coming in, I'm going to use the stun, because I want to make sure that this Overseer is stunned while I'm trying to gather this and while this pull's getting a little bit crazy, right? I don't want to have to dodge webs. We don't want to have to kick anything for the first few seconds. But obviously I leap away as that first webs are going off. And then we just finish off this pull. But yeah, so you want to gather that pull with the side mobs, and then you want to stun the caster while right before you pull in the flyers. So in the first like 5 seconds of that pull after the flyers come in, the one caster's not doing anything. It makes it a lot easier. So this next pull is just these 2 drones with another set of flyers. It works out nicely. This ends up being, a 7-pack. You definitely don't want to pull all of this into the patrol over there. You'll most likely die. There's just going to be too much going on, because these jump and there's the puddles, and then obviously there's the webs to dodge. So just doing those 2 drones with the flyers is a nice pull here. I do want to mention, obviously, the drones put a slow on your tank, and every tank has different ways of dealing with it. Like Paladin, you can just freedom. For Warrior, you have Heroic Leap and Intervene. So that's usually what I do interchangeably. So I'm going to drag it up to a more flat surface here to make it easier. I was able to just move out of those webs. I didn't have the slow on me at the time. But now that I do have the slow on me, as you can see here, the next cast of those webs, I will probably have to Heroic Leap away. My Heroic Leap is up. So I'm just going to leap away here. If those webs are casting and you don't have Heroic Leap up, you can intervene to a ranged target. So usually I do the healer. If I know that those webs are casting, I'll look where the healer is and I'll intervene to them, because it will still get you out of the webs. So it's just something to be mindful of as a warrior who kind of has to handle this all yourself. So we're just going to finish this off, and then we're going to be at percentage. This route, I really like it. It's effective. It's only 3 pulls in this last area, and you're done. And all of the pulls are similar size, so you're not doing a big pull and a small pull. You're really being efficient and getting a lot of mobs DPS down at once. So we're going into last boss here with 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Plenty of time to 2 chest. Looks like everyone has their CDs. They're starting to send CDs now. Yep, everybody sent their CDs. So this boss should start melting quite a bit. And as you see here, now that we have 2 ranged, it makes the poisons a lot easier. There's not so much of us in melee stacked on top of each other. with these poison dispels coming out. As a warrior or a tank, by the way, with a ranged ability, you want to be killing the blood workers. You see these blood workers that'll start roaming around the room, and they move pretty fast. I can throw my axe at them and they'll die, because as soon as those things take one tick of damage, they're going to drop a puddle. And I just try and get them killed off before they reach the center of the room to keep those puddles on the outside. You know, sometimes I'm preoccupied and I don't, but you see I tag this one over here and throw my axe at it. Boom. Drops a puddle. I would just suggest try and help out your team a little bit with that if you can as a tank. I know paladins can just throw their hammers or shields at the blood workers and get them to drop the puddles. But yeah, you want to keep the center of the room kind of clean if you can. So this Cosmic Singularity cast, you know, it will probably one-shot you on higher keys. Some tanks have to stand in a puddle to get gripped to make sure they don't get sucked in. Some tanks have a way to deal with it, like Paladin of course has freedom. But I'm going to explain the warrior leap in a second here, because it took me a while to figure out the leap timing on this to not get hit. So next time it casts here, I'm going to talk about that. But other than that, this fight, it's pretty scripted. It does the same thing over and over again. It does 2 poison casts. It does the erupting webs on the floor that you have to move out of, and then it just does the suck, and that's the entire fight. So this cast is going off. You want to leap. It'll do. I have to pause this. It's far too fast. So let me backtrack here. So around 1.2 seconds, between 1 and 1.2 seconds, you'll notice the boss will nudge you in quickly. It'll be a small nudge, like it's not going to be a huge suck. It'll be a small nudge like this. That's when you want to leap away, between 1 and 1.2 seconds, when it does this small nudge, and then the boss suck will happen before you get sucked back in, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that was a terrible example. We will look at the next one. And that's exactly why I said the timing's hard to miss. Or it's hard to get, because I actually missed that timing. I was probably looking at something else on the screen. So, hilarious example of what not to do. Thankfully this is a 13 and not a higher key. I'm not really sure what key I can survive that suck on. I still don't think it's a one-shot on a 15, but you still don't want to get into bad habits as a tank. Okay, so this suck is coming back up again, so I'll get a chance to show you guys. So, see that little nudge and then I leap? That's exactly what you want to do. You feel it pull you back a little bit, like at the 1 second mark, and that's when you leap forward. So now we're just going to finish this boss off. There's, you know, over 2 minutes on timer, so this is an easy 2 chest. We only had 2 deaths this dungeon, and I think they were both DPS on the second boss. And, you know, they were just dying from floor mechanics and frontals, so this could have easily been a 0 death run. And that's the dungeon. No IO from this one. This was just a homework key that I thought would have been a great commentary example. You know, 22-minute and 50-second Ara-Kara. So yeah, hopefully I covered everything. I try and talk through what I'm thinking as a tank and what I'm looking for and doing throughout the dungeon on different parts. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys have any questions. This video is probably, you know, 3 to 4 days old, I think, at this point. But yeah, I'll keep doing commentaries if I get footage of keys that go really well that I think I can show you. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.